Speaking Human.
Today on Speaking Human, we quibble over whether all the quacks and quips about the failure of Quibi are well-deserved, and provide some quick reviews of the streaming platform's bite-sized content offerings.
Speaking Human.
Welcome to Speaking Human, where we simplify the world of marketing for humans. I'm Shad Conley, and with me is my co-host, Patrick Jebber. And Patrick, how do you like to consume your entertainment? In buffet-style binges or tiny little small bites?
I think there's a time and a place and a mindset for both of these methods of consumption, Shad. No, but sometimes I do like to partake in a binge session. But with binging can come purging because, let's face it, not all entertainment is good. And when it's not, you just need to remove it completely from your memory, right? Hence the purging.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Sometimes you just have to purge those binges. You know, I used to love a good binge, but I haven't done a lot of binging lately. Maybe it's because I feel like I've watched all the good stuff, or maybe because of the way my life is constructed now, there's just not a lot of time for those all day spent on the couch binging TV shows. So basically the way my life is now, I want everything to be shorter. Shows, movies, sporting events, social engagement. I want everything cut down. TV shows that are like 45 minutes to an hour, too long. Movies that are 2.5 hours long, too long.
Yeah.
Seasons of TV shows that are like 13 episodes, it's too much. Usually it's padded. I feel like they could be 5 or 6 episodes and they get across exactly what they needed to have there. Books, 250 pages is probably fine. I don't need 500 pages. It's too much. Let's make everything shorter.
If all those things are true, we've got the solution for you, Shad. It's Quibi.
Maybe I'm the exact audience for Quibi.
Quick bites. Quibi. That's what it means.
Where's the car? Greg, where are you?
I'll be there in a Quibi.
A what?
A Quibi. Less than 10 minutes.
Next time you got fun. Next time you got fun.
Quick bites, big stories. Quibi.
I mean, maybe it's Quibi. So if you haven't heard about Quibi, or maybe you've heard about Quibi, but you don't know exactly what it is, you may remember like the Super Bowl ads from last year, or you've heard of the strange name, but you still don't know. You're like, what is Quibi? You're probably not alone. Probably a lot of people feel that way. So let me give you a little background on this thing called Quibi. Here's what you need to know, basically. Here's the Cliff Notes. It's a new streaming service that launched April 6th, so pretty fresh. It's short. The idea behind Quibi is, like you said, Patrick, quick bites, big stories. That's their tagline. So they're a streaming service that's available for mobile devices only, offering episodes that are 10 minutes or less. It was costly to create. According to Adweek, Quibi spent nearly $2 billion on its creation and release.
It's a chunk.
I mean, you know, billions these days. We hear that number thrown around a lot, but seems like a lot for a streaming service. It's underperforming so far. According to the Wall Street Journal, Quibi is on pace for just 2 million subscribers by the end of the year. It was predicted to have 7.2 million. So 5 million off from where it was predicting. Here's what it costs. It's $4.99 a month with ads, or $7.99 without ads. And not a lot of people want to pay that. The Verge reported Quibi loses 90% of users after their free trial expires. 90% of users, I would guess Apple's probably pretty close to that with their subscription service.
That'll be an interesting comparison because Apple, when they released that last year, they were giving away a year free for anybody who had a new phone or whatever. So a lot of their subscriptions, I think, come from that. And after that year is up, what will that look like?
Yeah, and for comparison, Quibi gives people 14 days free before they have to pay.
Yeah. So I think it's really all about content, the variety and the amount of content. If you can find content on there that you like, you might be the person who ends up spending that money.
Yeah.
Now, those other streaming services, they're available via your mobile device, but also your television. So they do have that going for them.
Yeah. So Quibi just all around has been kind of a punching bag lately. Reporting on it has just been pretty brutal. A sampling of some of the headlines. Why Quibi is struggling. Is anyone watching Quibi? The fall of Quibi. How did a starry 1.75 billion Netflix rival crash so fast? So everybody is just kind of rushing to declare Quibi dead or over or a failure. And there's memes about it, jokes about it. It's just become an easy target to say, Quibi, man, they crashed and burned so quick, and calling Quibi over, even though it's only been around for just a couple of months. And I don't know if that's really fair at this point.
Just be honest, though. It's not Quickster, it's Quibi. Quickster couldn't even get off the ground. Quibi, at least, it's got an interesting start, so we'll see.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen. I think people just always love to do this. We know internet culture loves to be the first one to declare something, a failure, or just give that barrage of punches at something and talk about how terrible it is. I mean, isn't that half of what the internet is all about?
It's all about, they're cyberbullying Quibi. Well,
yeah, they're basically like, what thing can we say is the worst today?
Yeah. So our title of this podcast is Questions About Quibi. So we have 3 questions. Question number 1 is this: was Quibi a bad idea? What do you think?
This is the big question, right? At the whole heart of this whole idea behind this service about short form content, is it a bad idea? And no, I don't think so. As I mentioned, I'm in on the idea, especially like high quality short form content. I like the idea of being able to watch a couple episodes of a show when I only have 5, 10, or 20 minutes. And I don't feel like there's a lot of options for that out there, unless you're just watching a piece of something, like, a part of a show or a part of a movie. So I like that. I think that core idea is actually very strong, and I think there's a lot of great potential there. I will say I'm not sure the service lives up to that potential for a couple key reasons. I think you hit on these a little bit with what you were saying. And one is, I think launching mobile only to start was a pretty big mistake on Quibi's part. Going back, Netflix didn't start out as just streaming content, because people would not have been ready for that, because people had no idea what streaming was. Mm-hmm. Remember, it was DVDs by mail. It was those red envelopes, because people knew what DVDs were. And then they gradually pushed people into streaming. I feel like Quibi should have done the same. They should have just gradually nudged people in here. All right, here's Quibi. You can get it everywhere. Fall in love with our content. Get to know our platform, get to know what our service is, and then phase 2, we'll push mobile. We'll push mobile hard and say, this is where you should be watching Quibi. But first, we want you to just love the content, get used to the name, get used to the service, stuff like that. So that was the number 1 mistake. Number 2, I feel like the price point is all wrong. For the short content, even with the A-listers involved and stuff like that, and you're trying to go mobile only, to me, $1.99. That's what I think it should be at. Feels more right. But paying what Disney Plus charges for Quibi, to me, seems crazy. But yeah, to answer the question in the most basic form, I do think it is a good idea. What about you?
I go back to, was Quibi a bad idea? No. Unfortunately, it's a victim of circumstance, right? I was reading this New York Times article that came out right around the launch that stated before the spread of the coronavirus, whenever the 2 executives who created Quibi, Mr. Katzenberg and Miss Whitman, made their Quibi pitch, they would describe it as an on-the-go diversion for anyone standing in line at a Starbucks or riding the subway. If you're pitching it as that's your target audience, well, that right there tells you, Quibi is going to have a really difficult time. Nobody's doing that right now. Nobody. So now you've got this mobile-only focused streaming service. Now, price point, could it be cheaper? Sure. let's face it, $4.99 a month. I mean, I'm not here to pitch Quibi, but that's a pretty small drop in the bucket, especially when you're talking about Netflix, which is $15 or thereabouts, and you've got Hulu, which is, roughly around that price. I think for the quality of the content and to get those directors and those A-list actors, it's going to cost money for those talents. It's like Netflix. They dump a ton of money into their content, and content producers have flocked to Netflix because they can make really great stories, right?
Yeah. I think I disagree with what you're saying. Thinking the streaming competitive landscape to get people in, just to get them in the door, having that really low rate would have been a good idea. And maybe we'll get more into that in a minute with our second question here, which is, was Quibi a marketing or branding failure? And what are your thoughts on that, Patrick?
I mean, from my perception, I think Quibi marketed itself a ton prior to the launch. I mean, I knew what it was.
Good point. That's a win right there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I knew what it was before it started. And granted, we're in this industry of, we've said this in the past, we're probably not a great focus group for this kind of thing because we probably know a little bit more than the average person because we're constantly researching and looking for new things like this. There's something to say for that. But I think a lot of people were talking about it before it even opened its streaming doors. And that would indicate success in most cases. I wouldn't say the marketing or the branding failed. Again, I go back to this, and I hate to justify it, but would it have been any different had the pandemic not happened? Maybe not. Maybe the price point is off, like you said. I think the content's really good so far at launch, but there's no television component. So there should have been a Quibi app on Apple TV and Roku and what have you. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. That would have been hugely helpful, I think, because there's a lot of people who just don't watch TV on their phones, right?
Maybe that's the failure. And if you want to call that branding, they should have built something that was accessible via television. So that would be the one component I would say would probably be the closest to failure, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because rather than just, let's get people who watch TV on their phones, they could have been like, let's teach people to watch TV on their phones, right? What do you think of the name? What about the name as far as, like a branding aspect? Do you think the name is successful?
They combined two words, shortened them to make a new word, hoping that it will catch on. And technically, Quick Bites should have been Quibi or Quibite or Quibite. I don't know. Anyway, Quibi, I'm okay with that for the most part. So I don't really have any negative things to say about Quibi as a name.
Yeah, a lot of people bash on it. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's great. It's one of these, there's a lot of tech names that are like this, but it's not terrible. Yeah. It's not weird great like the Seattle Kraken. It's not something like that where you're like, all right. Yeah. But it's just one of these names that falls in this pile of tech names that are like made up words or combined words that people just like to bash on.
Let me ask you this. Here's the great follow-up question. What do you think is better as a streaming service, Quibi or Peacock?
That's a good question.
That's a hard question, isn't it?
Yeah. Peacock fits with NBC. It fits with where it's going there. Quibi is shorter.
Yeah.
So I'd put him in that same tier of goodness,
Yeah.
Or not goodness. I might be inclined to go slightly more with Peacock. I don't know why.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would too. Here's the reason why. Here's what Peacock has going for it. You can visualize what a peacock is. Therefore, as a branding element, you can do a lot with that. Quibi is not a thing. There's no way to visualize what Quibi is because Quibi is quick bites. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Though Quibi could have made a little guy named Quibi.
They could have. Maybe they still will.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I'm probably a little more negative on the marketing side of Quibi. I agree there was awareness. They had the Super Bowl commercial and stuff like that. I'll ask you a couple more questions or, issues that popped into my mind. I think one of the things I noticed was up until launch, I had no idea what the shows were that were coming to Quibi. There was no anticipation built where I was like, I want to get Quibi so I can watch X. Didn't think they really did a good job of promoting the content they had coming out. Do you remember seeing anything like that?
No, I thought the exact same thing. That would probably be my gripe, if you want to call it that. if you're trying to get people to fall in love with your content, which is all that Quibi is, you need people to buy into the content. It didn't do a great job of selling me on what was going to be available. Now, maybe that's why they give away a free trial. They want you to experience it while you're in the platform. What do you think?
I think that's an interesting defense, but I think it's a bunch of hooey. Everybody gives away free trials.
Yeah.
The other thing I thought was, who's the audience they're going for with this? Some of it seems to skew more like 30s or something like that. When I look at the stars of some of these shows, if you're going mobile only, looking at their content and their strategy, I just couldn't get a grasp on who's their demographic. I would like to see who they're chasing after specifically with this service, because I just couldn't get a real take on that.
Yeah, I'll go back. Not exactly sure. I do feel like I'm sort of defending Quibi in this podcast episode.
Yeah, it's kind of turned out that way, huh? When did you become the lawyer for Quibi?
I am not connected to Quibi in any way. I should probably have that disclosure and disclaimer on the podcast episode. But I would say this from a marketing angle. They're focusing on it's a quick, short bite of content, but you're wondering, what is the content? I want to know what the content is. So it might be a falter of that approach, especially because you said you want to know what the content is. So maybe they needed to intersperse ads for the most dangerous game, which we'll be talking a little bit about today on the episode. So
yeah, I think there's some opportunities they may have missed, but while you're right, they did get the idea of Quibi as a new streaming service, Quibi as quick bites. They were so worried about getting those ideas across that they decided to push these other things to the side. Maybe that was purely intentional.
Yeah. So the third question we've led into this, where do you think Quibi will be a year from now looking forward? Will it turn things around or will it be completely forgotten? Quibi, where will it be?
I'll say this. It won't exist as it is now. So might be kind of vague answer, but something big will have changed. The name, the price, the delivery method, maybe they'll manage to have a breakthrough hit or something that drives people to the service. Something huge will have changed with this service, because I don't think the version that exists right now that we're seeing at this moment can sustain. So I see one of those scenarios happening. Maybe they change the price to 99 cents a month and get some traction that way. Or maybe it's on Apple TV and Roku and they're just promoting it like crazy. Or maybe they become quickie and people go there looking for something else. But this Quibi that we have right now, it's not going to make the cut. It's not going to be here a year from now, is what I'm predicting.
Yeah, I think it has the opportunity to capture a part of the paid streaming market. It definitely needs a television component, and it has to have new content consistently. I mean, it has to continue producing this. If it falls short there, it won't be able to make it at all. So I go back to this, spending $2 billion on getting all the stuff produced and then launching it. I hope they have seriously deep pockets, because to me, you have to keep that up. Even if you're sort of struggling to get these new customers. We talked about Netflix quite a few times here. There were points where Netflix had moments of struggling because they were starting into producing their own content and produce it regularly so that subscribers stayed with them. And so Quibi is going to definitely have to do that, because once you watch everything that they have to offer, why would you stay a subscriber? And that's the key to any of the streaming services, that you have to have a really deep vault of content. Like you mentioned, Disney, you pay $4.99. The Disney library is humongous. I can probably watch Disney for the rest of my life, 24 hours a day, and still probably never get through it all. So if they don't, I think it would just dissolve into nothing.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And, the Netflix point is a great one, because it's hard to remember now, but 10 years ago, people were like, this Netflix thing, not going to hold. It's a flash in the pan. It's not going to stick around, people. You look back, that was all over the place. What is Netflix going to do to survive? And now it's just one of the bigs in entertainment, if not the big. So it's important to remember that. It could easily turn things around and just become a game changer.
Money helps that.
Yeah, money always helps. Subscribers,
yeah. So before we get into a few of the shows that we reviewed, let me ask you this. One of the interesting elements of Quibi is this vertical and horizontal format. Did you try that out? What did you think of that?
I'm really glad you brought that up. I thought it was fantastic. I thought the Quibi app viewing experience was one of the best parts of it. When I started using it for the first time, I pretty much just spent the first 5 minutes just flipping my phone back and forth. I couldn't believe how smooth that was. I've just never seen anything quite like that when you're watching something, to move from vertical and horizontal and just have it so seamless.
Yeah.
I was just in awe of that for, like I said, minutes at a time, where I just kept doing it and I almost wanted to catch it in a glitch and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I agree, man. And this goes back to the filmmakers, the producers of the content. They knew going into this, when they filmed the entertainment, that they were going to have this vertical and horizontal format. So when you are watching on a phone vertically, all of the elements that you need to see to consume that scene are front and center. But when you flip it horizontally, you get more of the environment that they're in, which is so fantastic. I tended to want to watch the episodes in horizontal format, but I didn't start that way. I started vertically, and then I remembered, oh yeah, that's right. And I turned it horizontally, and you had a bigger picture of what was going on. And I was like, this is great. And I kept trying to do the same thing you were doing, like catch it. Will it not show me something that I can see in the horizontal when I flip the vertical? And I couldn't catch it in any moment of weakness.
Yeah, it's simple, but it's super cool and it's so well done. And you're right, they had to like plan that out ahead of time, I guess, so that it would work for everything.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. But yeah, I did the same thing you did. I started watching vertically and then I went horizontally, and you're like, oh yeah, this is the way to actually watch it, because you get the full picture, but it still looks so good when you're watching it vertically. I've never seen anything actually look that good. Nothing looks odd at any point.
Yeah, which once upon a time that was so against the rules.
Yep. Frowned upon.
You never shoot video vertically. Even people would like shoot with their phones. You're like, no, dude, shoot it horizontally. Come on. We don't have televisions that are vertical and that kind of thing. And now with phones being such a big part of our lives, Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok, all those platforms are vertical. So it's an interesting development in creating entertainment and content that is thinking about the vertical format from its inception. You're not just creating it in horizontal format and going, as an afterthought, let's try to figure out how this will work in vertical. They plan these things out. Very, very cool, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Worth checking out the Quibi app just to flip your phone around and check out how that works alone, I think, though. Well, in a minute, we'll tell you our thoughts on a few of Quibi's movie quality shows designed for your phone. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
Are you looking for clothing that's been handmade and cut by real scissors? Do you wish you could find stuff that communicated how you feel today, maybe even right now? Do you have a man bun? Okay, maybe we went a little too far with that one. But really, if you're looking for positive messages that have a sarcastic flair, Smash Stuff could be what you've been searching for. Smash Stuff. Smash Stuff is built on the idea that there's a simpler way to communicate. Shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, stickers, all with messages aimed at making a definitive statement. Let our products speak for you. That's Smash with 2 H's, because we like to emphasize things we believe in. Check us out at smashstuff.com today. Legally, we're not allowed to say with 100% certainty that Smash Stuff is right for you. We also are not allowed to guarantee it, but we do think that there's a 70-30 chance. Wait, what? What do you mean? Oh, okay. Let's say there's a 60-40 chance. Wait, what? Oh, come on. Okay. Chances are that you might find stuff at smashstuff.com. That's Smash with 2 H's, because we like to emphasize things we believe in. Visit smashstuff.com today.
So Shad, this segment of the podcast, we watched Quibi. We were watching shows on Quibi, and we both watched one together, one that we chose that we wanted to see together to see what we thought of it. And then we each picked at least one that we watched independently from each other, and we were going to talk a little bit about that, right?
Yeah.
I will say this about Quibi. They actually had a lot of things that interest me.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's a plus. Maybe that's why I've defended them too. I think this whole episode is I'm like, hey, this stuff isn't that bad. Now, if it would have been torture watching these, I'd have probably been like, Quibi, blah. So the show that we watched together was Most Dangerous Game.
Not the most dangerous game, just most dangerous game.
There's no the, right?
No.
So this features Liam Hemsworth, or as I communicated to my wife, the other Hemsworth. Sorry, Liam.
Not Thor.
She immediately corrected me, though. She laughed and she said, that's messed up. It's Liam. I was like, wait a second. What's happening here? How do you know this guy?
I don't even know his credentials other than him being Thor's brother.
I have seen him in other things, I think. I don't know if he was the lead actor or anything. But the show is about a desperate man in debt who chooses to take part in a game where he's hunted. What will happen? Who knows? I don't even know because I've really only watched 2 or 3 episodes, which are about 7 minutes apiece. I think there might be 12 or 15 episodes in this one.
Yeah, something like that.
So what'd you think of this? What'd you think of the show?
I didn't get that far. I only watched episode 1. And boy, episode 1 is rough. I did not go for episode 1.
Yeah.
I thought for a show that is so short, what a snore, man. Something like this should jump, pop, it should get you right in. Boy, episode 1 just put me to sleep. I thought Hemsworth was really pretty awful in it. Christoph Waltz, I thought was pretty good. I found it pretty uninteresting, the first episode. It just left me no reason to watch any more of it. What about you?
I wouldn't say it was a snore. I think it's a slow build. The first 2 episodes, they're really building up the backstory of what's going on with this guy. And so they haven't gotten to him being hunted yet.
What I found interesting watching these is I think about how they work in this short format specifically. And this one, I was like, man, wouldn't this have been so much better if it just starts with him being hunted, right?
Yeah.
And you're thrown right into that. And then maybe in the next episode, then we flash back to how he got there. I feel like I would be so much more drawn in that way.
You're probably right. Maybe they should have done that. Maybe that would have pulled us in a little bit quicker.
Or maybe it's just not the most dangerous game. Maybe it's just dangerous game. So
maybe it's slightly dangerous game.
Maybe it's like a game where you might get hurt a little bit.
It's not a dangerous game. Not dangerous game.
That could have Christopher Walken in it.
This is not dangerous. 2 episodes where we got Walken in on us.
But it's a game. Pay me. So that's Most Dangerous Game. What else did you watch on Quibi? I'm interested to hear this.
All right, man. So this season, there's only 7 episodes, but Memory Hole with Will Arnett as the host dives into the archives of pop culture, revisiting trends, inventions, and events that haven't aged very well. Shad, I will say this. This series is just right down
your memory hole?
This is right down my memory hole.
Right up your memory hole?
That doesn't sound great.
No.
Just to give you a taste of the series itself, it starts with this intro. Warning, you are about to enter the memory hole, a region of pop culture history so painful that no light can escape it. First of all, memory hole, I don't know why this makes me laugh every time I think of it. The fact they created a series called Memory Hole is just funny. And then that just adds to it, right? This warning. But I stumbled on episode number 4 or 5. A very special episode is what it's titled. And it was downright hilarious. I think I told you, you have to watch this episode.
And I did. If you grew up in the time period of public service announcements, you'll definitely get it.
Oh, man. So fantastic. And I didn't watch any of the other episodes yet. But if Quibi produces more like this, I might be inclined to subscribe myself. They've got things like this. They stand alone each episode. You don't have to watch another one. It doesn't lead into the next one, that kind of thing. It's comedy versus, a serious drama, thriller, action, whatever. There's some good things happening on the platform, and I think this is one of them.
And that's, to me, is exactly the type of content Quibi should be producing. And I think comedy is particularly rich genre for Quibi, too, that they can really own that area.
Yeah, I agree. Short comedy bites, I think, could really benefit this platform for sure. So what's the next show that you watched?
I watched the show Dummy. Have you heard of this show?
Yes, I have.
This is a truly unique show. Now, here's a show that pops and jumps right into it from the get-go. Unlike The Most Dangerous Game, it just gets going. So the premise of this show, for those who don't know, a woman played by the always delightful Anna Kendrick, who I've talked about on this podcast before, who's been in ads I really liked, and as well as movies. Just really enjoy her presence and her lighthearted comedy. Finds out that her boyfriend has a sex doll, and when she meets the sex doll, it actually comes to life in a very weird animated form and tells her that its name is Barbara. Now, this is exactly the type of comedy I kind of want from Quibi. It's weird, it's subversive, it's dirty, totally bizarre, and something that fits this short form, I think, pretty well. As I've said, if Quibi wanted to, they could own this comedy programming, because it seems to me there's an opening for that in streaming. And within 10 minutes, this show just establishes a unique vibe and tone. It really gets to it. Within 5 minutes, you know what's going on with the show. I was a big fan of this. I liked what was going on with Dummy. And like I said, I think comedy and Quibi is a really, really good fit.
I checked out the first episode, and I will say, raunchy, little raunchy.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the fun of it, right? Probably not for everyone, but I agree. I think this is where the variety of what they've accomplished in such a short time, I think, is where I feel like my defense of Quibi starts to come in, because I was impressed more than I thought I would be.
I think I agree with you. Based on what I heard and the bashing, I had pretty low expectations for it. So the content was better than what I expected.
Yeah. Oddly enough, I found myself thinking this was only 7 or 8 minutes. Like, each episode, I feel like I'm getting more in these episodes than I normally get. Not because I was bored, you know, like how you're watching a movie and you're like, geez, this movie is dragging. But more of like the actual content of the episodes felt longer and story rich. Even though some of them weren't as good as others, I thought I was getting more in those short bites. What did you feel like there?
No, that's a really good point. It doesn't feel like you're watching something super short. And I don't mean that in a bad way. You feel like you're sitting down watching something and you're getting a story experience. You do sit down there and you feel like you're invested and time is passing, and it's not as short as you think it's going to be, I guess, is what I would say. I think it feels substantial.
Yeah. Which, to me, that's a real testament to good writing and good storytelling, for sure.
Yeah, you don't need 45 minutes. You don't need an hour.
Yeah. So the big question of the day, will you watch more Quibi, Shad? It doesn't sound like you're going to subscribe.
I'll watch until my free trial expires, and then I think that'll probably be the end of the line. Like I said, I was impressed by what was there. Price point for the service is just not there. So I'm not closing the door on the relationship. Who knows what'll happen in the future? But for me, in this fleeting moment right now, I just think I'm probably going to come to the end of this and be like, it was better than expected, but still probably not going to pay for it. And also, of course, we want to point out, we do see the irony that this podcast is long enough where you could watch 7 Quibbies in the time it takes place. We're like, make everything shorter as we ramble on for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, we probably created a podcast longer than all the series on Quibi combined. So that's something. We accomplished something today. Well, that's it for today's episode, everyone. You can find current and past episodes of the podcast on speakinghuman.com. You can also find our collection of short videos on marketing, branding, and pop culture by clicking on the videos tab. It may not be Quibi, but it didn't quite cost us $2 billion to produce either, so we're cool with it.
Yeah, we'll be back in a Quibi. Had to do it. With another episode of Speaking Human. Catch you then, humans.
Speaking human.